Are you a parent navigating the complexities of co-parenting, family court, or even domestic violence? If you are looking for ways to help protect your children and build a strong and supportive community around you, then look no further. Gray Minds Think Alike is your go-to resource for everything related to the complexities of family life. Join us as we dive into thoughtful conversations with experts and explore practical tips and strategies for tackling the challenges of parenthood in the throes of adversity so that no parent feels alone and every child's safety is protected. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first edition of Gray Minds Think Alike. Today is a little bit different than all the other podcasts will be. We are doing something called Meet Your Host. I thought it'd be really important for everyone to know who Allie Kessler is and why we're doing this podcast. So today's episode will be featuring me, Allie Kessler, and our host today will be my best friend since high school, Erin Cooper.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm happy to host.
Thanks for coming.
And as you said, we've been friends since we were 14, I would say.
Yeah, 14.
So we've been through a lot of life change together.
That is definitely a true statement.
And so I thought what would be the best way to start for people to get to know you was to find out about what your life was like before you were a mom. What did you envision your future to look like?
Oh gosh. Let's see. What did I envision my future? Definitely not what it is. I was very hopeful. I had a lot of dreams and aspirations, and I was pretty adventurous. I moved around a lot as an adult. I moved to Colorado. I moved to New York City, and my life was, pretty normal. I had a very normal life. I had, great friends. I always had some, good jobs.
Yeah.
I traveled. I did sketch comedy when I lived in New York City. I worked at a sleepaway camp.
And you were always very motivated, always a very good student. You went to a great university.
Yeah.
And always had dance degrees. You're always working towards that next big step.
Right. I went to University of Florida for my undergrad with a bachelor's in advertising and a minor in English. I then went to the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale for graphic design, and that was a pretty awesome program. And then most recently, I went back to school at Full Sail University and got a degree in digital marketing so I can sort of hone in on all the digital stuff that I was working on, which also related to the advertising and the graphic design.
And I've always been very impressed with how you were never handed like a lot of money to start off. You really had to work. You had to get loans. You had to pay cards to pay for your housing. I mean, you really hustled in life. Nothing was handed to you. And I've always been very impressed.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, my parents were divorced growing up, so, we didn't come from a lot of money. We were pretty middle class, but we were never in need of anything.
Right.
I was able to do well in school, and I got, a lot of student grants and student loans, and I was able to still continue with my trajectory.
Yeah.
Not be hindered.
Well, so you moved to New York a little later in life. In your early 30s?
For the third time.
For the third time, yes. That's the most recent.
Yes, that was mid-30s.
Mid-30s.
Yeah.
And as an author, it seemed to me like you were going to New York to expand your career and to find the love of your life.
Yes, I mean, at the time I was sort of just sort of stagnant here in Fort Lauderdale. I was in between jobs. I was doing freelance work at home. I was just very unmotivated, and I just felt like, a new change of scenery and, a little New York City life could do me some good.
Yeah.
So I just, I actually was going to Portland, Oregon. And I went to Oregon for 2 weeks.
And I had so much fun there. I went to waterfalls, hikes, and it's just beautiful. And then I came home and I said, nope, not moving to Portland. I think I'll go to New York City. It wasn't for me. I was like, I need to get dressed up every night.
Yeah. And I think there's more fun to be single and live in the best life in New York City, right?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in New York, outside of the city, but then after college I moved back to the city. So I was able to experience that right after college. And then, it was definitely a good stepping stone, and I was able to meet a lot of good people for career, for friends.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And you were there for how long?
That time I was there for about 4 years.
And then you moved back home for a job, and I think you kind of missed your family.
Yeah, it was getting, you can only do New York City for a certain amount of time before you just feel completely drained. As fun as exciting as it is, it's exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I had a few job offers. I had one in Brooklyn that I accepted. And then I had a job offer from a big ad agency here in Fort Lauderdale that seems almost too good to be true. They were in my hometown, so my family would be here. They were offering me a good and competitive salary and benefits, and they also offered to pay for my relocation, which just seemed like a no-brainer. If I ever did want to come back, I was like, they would pay for it. They seemed to really want me, which was a nice feeling. So I ended up actually accepting that position.
So at this point, when you were in New York City, you were casually dating John. And we should note that this man will respond. But you're casually dating John.
Not the whole time, just the last month I was in New York.
Okay. Yeah. And you had not discussed, let's get pregnant. This was not a plan that you had.
No, we didn't have any kind of plan. In fact, we had met a year prior to our dating. Mm-hmm. We met online on Match or one of those dating sites. We met and we hung out like 2 nights in a row on a weekend. And then he literally sent me a text message saying that he didn't think it was going to work out, that I reminded him of Chelsea Handler and Amy Schumer, and that he didn't see me as being the mother of his children.
Which you at the time thought that was an incredible compliment.
My reply was, thank you.
Thank you. Right? I love Amy Schumer and Chelsea Handler.
I was like, that means I'm doing something right. And I was like, okay, no skin off my back. We just met, okay, nice knowing you.
Other fish in the sea.
No. So then a year later, on Valentine's Day, so this is 2016, John sent me a text message asking me if I wanted to meet for a drink. I was actually out with a girlfriend of mine after work. We were having a little single Valentine's. And I was actually right near where John suggested. So I, just humored it, and I was like, okay, let's just see,
Because you always dated kind of the cool guy, the handsome, cool guy of the group, right? And I always remember being like, Allie, you don't always have to be like the hottest, coolest guy, which was crazy.
Apparently I do, because of my current boyfriend.
Boyfriend is cute. So you texted me and said, I'm giving a nice guy a job.
Yeah, I don't remember saying that, but
yes.
Sure.
So this was what
he was definitely different than my normal,
Yes. And I remember thinking, okay, good for you, Al. Give a nice guy a try.
Yeah, and this was, like I said, Valentine's Day, so we dated casually for that month, but I had accepted that job and I knew I was moving away.
Yeah.
So I knew that it was never going to go anywhere.
And you guys were just sort of like, see you later.
Yeah, I was just like, well, I'm moving to Florida, keep in touch or not.
Yeah.
And that was it.
And then I remember being out to dinner with you. and you jokingly say, yeah, well, who knows, I could be pregnant. And I was so surprised when you said, oh, just kidding, I took a pregnancy test this morning because your period was late, and your period was not normal late. And you were like, no, I'm definitely not pregnant. But it was a foreshadowing into what would become a revelation later.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of, I feel like, God's intervention that I did accept that job in Florida because I was living in a third floor walk up in New York City.
Right.
And I just couldn't imagine if I had taken the job in Brooklyn, how I would have managed to have a newborn in a walk up apartment with a stroller and whatnot. So I feel like, moving to Florida was sort of this crazy coincidence. My family was here to obviously help me with this. And,
So, surprise, you're pregnant. How did you feel? And what were some of your hopes and dreams for this baby?
oh my gosh, I was so scared. I didn't know. I thought it was a joke. I went to like 4 doctors just to double check.
Didn't you take
I took like 10. I think I took about 10. And I was just sort of like this. And then just sort of, let it sink in a little. And of course, I had to sort of think about, well, okay, what does this mean? Live alone. And, obviously, John and I were not together. So I actually had to think about, well, what is this baby that I want? At the time, I was 39 years old. It's the first time I've ever gotten pregnant. A good job. I just felt like I was in a good place mentally to take on this new role. And I decided that I was going to go ahead and have a baby.
So you called John and gave him the news eventually, right? I'm sure you went through a few doctors.
Yeah, I, said we have to talk, and we did, and told him, I not told him. I lived on and I lived happily ever after with my child. But I opted to tell him because I thought at the time that it was the right thing. And he was just not happy about it. He wanted no part of being a father. He wanted no part of me. He wanted no part of my lives. He made it very clear that he would not be present. That this was just not what he wanted. I said, okay, I understand. You can sign away your rights, whatever we need to do. But I'm going to have this baby. And, at the time, John was still living in New York, New Jersey, and I was in Florida. So we weren't, living in the same city. And, I sort of left the ball in his court and went from there. I started getting just really horrible text messages and harassing behaviors at that time. To the point where I actually had to block his phone number while I was pregnant because it was just not healthy. And I was trying to make it as positive, the most positive pregnancy that I could. Yeah. So
it was a pretty good pregnancy. You didn't seem very sick. You seemed joyful. It's a relief.
Yeah, I mean everything, until the very end where I just started swelling up and getting really big, but everything, was easy. No issues,
The birth was beautiful. I was lucky to be there.
You were?
I was in the delivery room. She was the first person. Just gazing up at you. Guys, it was a really beautiful.
You make me cry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but he's just a special boy. So Grayson was born, and then things changed with John. He decided to move here. correct? Was that right? Way?
It was within a couple months.
Right, and I remember him coming down.
Well, yeah, he did like on his own version of it. Yeah, without me knowing, and he swapped her sheet. Sure enough, he was the father, which just meant he was the father. He didn't believe, the entire pregnancy. Which I'm not sure why anyone would make that up because the minute the child's born, you can prove.
So initially, we already
Sure. I mean, obviously thought that, I think that most men would probably be scared if, said, I get that. But I was not expecting that level of hatred along with it. And just overall. Yeah.
vitriol.
Yes. I mean, it was unwarranted. At some point, you just have to accept that this is reality. Or not. He could have been like, okay, well, good luck. I will sign away my rights and walk away, and he could have lived the life that he wanted to live.
And so
I never asked him to, be a part of it.
So he took me to court and was the baby.
Yeah, he was like, when he first moved down here, he wanted to do everything organically. He's like, lawyers, so he was do that money, and, let's sort of, do this amicably and whatnot. And sure enough, within 6 months, I was served papers. He was suing for paternity and name change. He actually wanted me to change Grayson's last name to his, which he wasn't even on the list.
So how did that go?
Well, he did not get the name change, thankfully. But at the time, I was told by counsel that if a man wants 50% custody, they will get 50% custody. I now know that that was a rebuttable presumption we made. That right now, a new law has been passed. It's called the 50/50 law. But that was not in the law, which means that it could have been argued.
And so did 50/50 on the onset?
We did like a step up program. So it started off with just some visitation during the week. So give Grayson a bath and then put him in the bed. And then we started doing overnights on the weekend, night, and then from there to.
And how did you do?
Not good. I did not like handing my baby over to a stranger. Breastfeeding when John first moved down. I didn't know John very well. I never lived with him. We just basically was handing my child to a stranger, so I was really not happy about it. But I also didn't want to interfere with him bonding with everything. So I accepted that, and I did what I could to sort of make this best possible experience.
And I think can you give people an idea of what a typical day looked like?
Well, in the beginning, a typical day was waking up with him as an infant and giving him his bottle and watching cartoons, and he was instantly in love with Daniel Clover.
As were you.
And then I became obsessed with all the music and I would sing along. And then we started, when he was getting a little bit older, we were able to do some activities. We did a swim class when he was only 3 months. Mommy and me swim. I took him to a bunch of mommy and me classes at my gym, and music class. And just, I just had so much fun just spending time with him one-on-one, either just, going at one of his classes or just going to the park. Or, as he got older, we used to go to the pool. He loved water slides. And then we just started doing more adventurous activities. I took him to Disney a few times. Took him to SeaWorld because he was obsessed with orcas.
That Disney trip where he was a baby, and the whole park was talking about this baby who liked Mickey.
He was so animated, and he kept he was, I'm trying to think how old. I think he was about 7 months old. Actually, I got in my memories today from Facebook with the day we went. Today.
Oh my gosh.
So we went to a meet and greet, and he saw Mickey Mouse. He watched Mickey Mouse at Clubhouse, and he just started squeezing Mickey's nose and squealing like he would laugh, squeeze it here. And Gray was named Gig because he had this infectious laugh that you just couldn't help but laugh back. So he just started squealing and screaming with delight about meeting Mickey. And there was a photographer there, that takes the pictures of him. And later on that day, before we left the park, I went over to the place where you pick up pictures to see if you want to buy them. And I was waiting in line, and I was listening to the staff that worked there. And they were literally saying, this baby from the morning was just the cutest thing they ever saw, and that they were just amazed, and just all this adorable, conversation. And I'm like, are you guys just talking about Grayson? And they're like, yeah, I'm his mom, and I'm here to pick up a picture. It was just so cute because, a lot of times babies, when they meet characters, get scared.
For sure.
And he loved it. He continued to love Mickey. So we went a few times.
And you guys traveled together, cruises.
Yeah, we did 2 cruises, which he loved both.
Yeah. He had a really wonderful life. What was his favorite meal? You made him spaghetti meatballs alive.
He went through little phases, but he always loved chicken nuggets and macaroni and cheese. He loved IKEA meatballs. Normal kid stuff, obviously pizza, but he also loved odd snacks at night. His bedtime snack would be salami, or just the most random things.
And as your friend would say that it was
it was the first time in my life where I felt like, okay, this is my purpose. I found my way. I didn't even care what else really happened as long as Grayson was with me. Everything was.
And you did.
I say that all the time.
Yeah. So after Grayson's father, co-parenting was a challenge a lot of the time. And what are some ways that you used to
he just made everything difficult. There was nothing that was not contested, even if it was just a conversation, schedule or time. Everything was just which is fine. Well, preschool was a nightmare. Grayson was zoned to go to school wherever I was. So it shouldn't have been that big of an issue. I toured 10 different preschools, and I made a whole deck, an Excel spreadsheet of the schools and the pros and the cons and the costs and what they offered and just everything. And he literally just said no. He said the only one that he would agree to. So everything was just a no. It was really hard to co-parent with someone that just didn't agree on everything.
And did you recognize that as boyfriend, or did you?
I recognized it as him trying to be as difficult as possible because he literally told me time and time again, even when I would come pick up Gray with Gray present, he would say, my life goal will be to make you suffer. So he was doing everything in his power to make that happen. He would never make anything easy or just do the right thing or even just do anything that was in Grayson's best interest. It was always about hurting me first. Grayson was, second.
Right. And how did you reach out for help during this period of time when he was being so difficult?
I mean, of course. I mean, I had a lawyer that was handling my case.
And you kept her up to date on all the things.
I would screenshot everything and I would text her every little thing that John did, throughout his 4 years. I mean, and John definitely did, aside from, little things or even text messages and harassing and stalking and all of the things that we know at the end. He was paying for things. He never agreed to pay for things. He didn't pay for school. I would end up paying, and then we have to try to get the money at the back end. It was just never. It was always contentious. Just never really knew what would happen or what was going on behind closed doors with him and Greg. Because I never saw them together, and I never lived with them, so it was just really hard to gauge what was going on. Yeah, when I wasn't there.
So when did you first feel fear for yourself or for your child?
Well, I was honestly from day one. I mean, from the minute I found I was pregnant, I would fear. I didn't know this man, so I didn't know what he was capable of. When I was pregnant, he started sending me text messages, alluding that he had severe mental issues, including PTSD. He said that he had tried to commit suicide before, that he was in a cult until he was about 23, all the movies, and that he suffered extensive trauma and brainwashing, and that he was manipulated. And it took him years of intensive therapy to trust people again. And, he was just telling me all these things, which at the time I thought he was just trying to scare me. I didn't even know if this was true. It sounded so insane to me that this could even be a true statement.
Right, because he told you that in the to get you to abort.
He wanted me to not have a baby, so he was giving me, what I now know to be true insights. So, reasons why he said autism in his family. He said that, reasons mental health. He said he lived in China. I mean, I just had no idea. I would say what was real. And so I Googled it. And I actually found some extensive articles about him and the cult. His mother, I think, was quoted in it. And I realized that it really actually was true.
Yeah. But at this point,
at this point, I was already pregnant.
Yeah. In your mind, that was really.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was already.
So, we're moving into our process. The things started ramping up. Which reacted to his negativity, his delusional behavior, maybe. When would you say that?
Say from the beginning. I mean, I think it's pretty delusional for someone to try to hurt a woman that's pregnant verbally and constantly, harass me via text and insult me and just, felt like that was abusive right there. Definitely. To the point where I blocked his phone number because it wasn't good enough. And then, I just knew that it wasn't normal that after even Gray was born, he was here. He's here. We have to move forward. We have to figure out a way to move forward. That he could never move forward. And he would still bring up the past of why he's so angry and he kids deserve better than this, and that you should never bring a child into a broken home, and that this is not the life that he wanted. This is not the life that Grayson deserves, and just all of this, narcissistic behavior where he was up here, I was down here, and which was so false to me because I grew up from a divorced home, and I know that it is pretty common nowadays to have a divorced home or a separated home or a two-family home or even a same-sex home or just a very unconventional family. So it didn't make any sense.
And he definitely displayed a lot of cruelty throughout your relationship. Like towards the end of Grayson's life, he still couldn't get over it. And he started to become
I think that his psychopath tendencies were always there. Always caused me strife.
COVID probably didn't help. He was very isolated.
Yeah, true.
Because
but we all were. And everyone, there's a child. But yes.
But someone who is insanity, I don't know. So
it exacerbated, I'm sure, whatever mental issue. Yeah.
So we're moving into June. These months, things start to get very scary.
Yeah, it definitely escalated. Throughout Grayson's life, there were some instances that were very scary. Maybe not dangerous, but not normal. We don't. I'm not going to go into details now, but like he made a big. He once climbed outside my house and called the police on himself. Pick up Grayson, which they ended up making him go away. He caused a big rift at his school. I mean, just really unusual behavior. Definitely was not normal. And then towards Grayson's final few months, his behaviors were just even more erratic. I believe that I thought I was either being followed or tracked or that he had.
And you were at my house till like 10:30.
Yeah, it was just at his birthday party, and he had texted the next morning. You were probably out late last night, so if you want me to take break today, so you can sleep. I remember thinking like, how did he know what time we got? We were at your house. Where he was playing with children. Well, it was 10 o'clock, which was late for Gray, but I wouldn't quite say that's late for me. And I just thought that was scary.
We had so much fun too. Dancing, playing.
There were multiple things where he said something, and I was just like, how did he know where I was? And I would even ask Grace sometimes, like, did you tell Daddy we went to so-and-so? And he would say no. And I'd be like, okay, and just think nothing of it. But just thought it was very, and it didn't leave me. Like, I always had it in the back of my mind.
And throughout this period of time, you are reaching out.
Oh, of course. I mean, I, again, would contact my lawyer and, tell her, keep her in the loop of everything that's going on, and, how the behaviors were escalating, whether he literally didn't pay for school, he wouldn't pay for camp. He started stalking me. He started creating big social media accounts, contacting me as someone else. He started contacting my boyfriend at the time, and pretending that he was someone looking to hire him. He was having his friends contact my boyfriend. He was doing credit checks on everyone in my family and background checks, and just really just unusual behavior. I mean, to the point where like I just felt like I was being watched. and stalked and harassed. And of course, the text messages and whatnot were just keep getting uglier and meaner. They were always pretty ugly and mean, but they were just getting elevated to another level of ugly and mean. Um, um, and I will say that during the entire course of Grayson's life, anything that John would say always sounded a bit delusional, meaning I always felt like he lived in his own reality, if that makes sense. Like his version, the way he saw things was not accurate in any way, and it wasn't reality. It was his version of an altered state of reality.
Right. I remember you saying that you would say things like, "Well, maybe we'll have a house together, get fence," and thinking,
well, I mean, he text me and I hate you. You're disgusting. You're a pig. You're this. You're that. Grayson deserves better. How could you bring Grayson in this dysfunctional life that you live? And you're a fraud and you're a liar. And you lied to get pregnant. And you this, you that. And then 5 minutes later, you're beautiful. Let's get married. Let's take Grayson to Hawaii. Let's live together. I mean, it literally in the same day to go to a high and a low like that, I knew was not normal. And when I say not normal, I mean mentally he was unstable. And that is just something that I knew from the get-go, because mentally stable people don't do or say the things that he did. He once just started kidnapping Grayson's belongings every time I'd send him to his house for the weekend or night or whatever it was. Whatever clothes or things that he was wearing or had with him, he wouldn't get back. And then I would say something like, "Can I get that back? Can I get his clothes? Can I get his shoes?" All his shoes were gone. And he's like, "Why don't you take the child support money that I give you and buy him more stuff?" And I just remember thinking, what kind of comment is that? Who is hijacking a kid's shoes just to prove a point? And then one day, when he came to pick up Gray, he brought a bag of Gray stuff and just threw each item on my lawn in front of Gray. "Here you go. You want your things back?" And he would throw it. "Go get it. Go get it, you kid." I mean, it was just really, and I'd be like, "Oh, that's really," I'd say, "That's really great to do in front of your child."
Yeah.
And he'd be like, and he would literally say, "Well, you should have thought of that before you lied to me." And this was when Grayson was about 3. I mean, he was here already. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just wanted his shoes. It shouldn't be that difficult to get shoes.
So you felt frightened and you felt things were.
I didn't even know what to do at this point. I was just, and then I was relying on my lawyer to sort of, butt in and say what we can do here, because no parent should live like this. This wasn't a contentious divorce. This wasn't a breakup. This wasn't like he was bitter that, we split up and he didn't want to break up or whatever. We never were together. And I gave him the opportunity to see if he wanted to be a family. He didn't. He never voiced anything else. So I just never really understood where this was all coming from. Or not even where it's coming from, because he would just say that this is not he was angry. But I didn't understand what the end goal was. At some point, was he just waiting until Gray was 18 to stop? Or was what did he really want? That's what I still don't.
We do know that he did both. And that seemed to be an overall theme in life.
Yes, but as much as I hated it, I was like, I have this beautiful child, and no matter how upsetting John made me, I just looked at Gray and it just sort of made it up.
Yes, Gray was. So, I remember the day that Gray was missing. He called. He said Gray's missing. I remember saying to you, "John is probably just trying to upset you." things like this don't happen. Things like this don't happen. He's going to be fine. You said, as far as that, because you were several times.
Yeah.
And so, pretty much, but when did you first? When did you?
Crazy enough, that day was just, me running around like a mad woman trying to find my child. And I feel like it shouldn't have been that difficult to get help or police involved. But I tried to get a few, wellness checks and tried to go to the gated community to the door. Had to get the police involved. They went out 5 times and they just said, we can't go out another time. The child was just with his father. Which, at this point, it was my parenting time, so I didn't understand why no one was actually putting an Amber Alert out or saying, okay, actually, these are 2 missing people, not just Grayson, but John is missing too. No one has seen either of them in 2 days. He did not show up for school, Grayson. He wasn't called in. I called his teachers. Nobody called him out sick. So at this point, there were 2 missing people, and the police just would not step in because they said this is family court, and that you need to do certain things. You have to get an emergency pickup order, this, that, and the other. And I was like, this is crazy. My child is missing. John is missing. I told them that I believe, John could have killed himself, hurt themselves, done something. I had John's family they called on their own accord, called the Fort Lauderdale police, stating, I believe my brother may have killed himself and there's a toddler stranded in the apartment. And they still wouldn't go in. And they said, well, why do you feel that way? And one of the sisters said that it was just a feeling that she had. They haven't been able to reach or contact John in a few days, and the circumstances obviously of that day. And they said, well, a feeling isn't enough. It's reliability. Which to me is just insane. And then, as you know, we ended up hiring a locksmith to break down the door, and sort of, coordinating with the landlord who lived out of state and the Fort Lauderdale police to finally go and break down that door, which you paid for. And
because I
had to do something. I just don't understand where there was no sense of urgency to understand what was going on.
And we were just sitting in there.
I was sitting there just not even knowing, I didn't even know what to think. I remember then I started driving over to the apartment because they said, okay, meet us down there, and then I got a phone call from the neighbor stating that maybe it's a good idea if I don't. And I didn't really understand why, but I was like, okay, well, maybe I won't.
Because she said it might look like custody.
Something along those lines. And honestly, I was just scared. I live about 25 minutes away, so I was like, all right, I'll come. Text me when they're there. Well, so I got a text from the neighbor stating that the locksmith and the police had just shown up. And this was about, give or take, around 11 p.m. It was late at night already. And I was just waiting. Texting, what's going on? Are they there? What did they answer? What happened? A million texts go by, no reply. And then I call the neighbor, and no answer. And at this point, I was just thinking, why wouldn't someone get back to you? Of course, I just sort of went into this mode where I was laying in my closet. I don't know why. Maybe I just felt safer on the floor in my closet and just waiting and waiting. Like, just, I don't even know what the state I was in, but sort of in shock, I guess. And then I remember that my phone rang and Jared picked it up. And it was the police, and they asked we were home, and this is probably like 3, 4 in the morning at this point. And he's like, yes, but they had an old address of mine, and they actually showed up to an old place that I lived. And so, he gave them back the address. About an hour, 2 hours later, I think it was around almost 5 a.m. at this point, the police knocked on my door, and a social worker, a police, or his name, all was the blur. And I just was in shock. I just didn't believe really important people this doesn't happen. And I've met other parents this happen too. It's not as one off as everyone thinks. Things need to change in our world, not even just the United States, but family court has some serious flaws. And the fact that I couldn't get the police to help me, and the fact that my injunction was denied, and I tried to get a restraining order, stating that all the I did get some text messages that were very alarming about me getting decapitated. You know, tried to be proactive ahead of time, and so this wouldn't happen. And it's like they didn't believe me, or they don't see this type of abuse as being abuse. And it's like they wait for the worst to happen before they actually make change. And it has to change, because we have to be able to stop this before it gets to the point of no return.
Right. And did you feel that you were dismissed?
I mean, I know other parents do. I never even got the opportunity to even get in front of a judge. I never even got the opportunity to even do more, because no one really took it seriously. There were 4 years of behavioral patterns that were red flags, that could have changed our custody arrangement, could have gotten John the mental health that he needed, could have changed our whole trajectory of our relationship.
And it's important that you're saying all of this, because I know for myself, I had no idea what he was doing was gaslighting, was control. These were sort of new idea in my
life. And me too. I mean, I never heard of coercive control prior to it happening. I knew that he was narcissistic, and I was actually reading co-parenting with a narcissist. But now, after the fact, when it was introduced to me, I mean, clearly every red flag was there for coercive control. When I talk to professionals, after Grayson's death, they're all aware that it's power of wheel or wheel of power. That's how you gauge when an individual is trying to gain all that control over you. So he was doing that by stalking me. He was doing that by tracking my thoughts. He was doing that by using Grayson as a pawn. He was doing that by controlling my finances, by not paying for things. He was doing that by insulting me, harassing me. In all of these ways, he was using that as control. And so that it wasn't just me getting what I wanted. He needed to be able to be entitled.
Right, and I think that this is something because we didn't have this information.
If I knew coercive control was a thing, if I knew all of these were things, I would have been like, ding, 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 ding. I mean, obviously, the level of crazy that I endured for 4 years was not a normal, co-parenting existence. I mean, I knew other parents have, co-parenting issues that, probably stem from, divorce, bitterness, or, breaking up or whatnot, but not to the level of, insanity that John had, as we didn't have that experience together. So I just never.
So, what was the support system like for you after those deaths? And what were the services?
Well, obviously, I be a grief counselor. Um, just to help. I feel like, everyone's like, oh, is it helping? So, my friend, um, I always say, like, you may see me here, sitting here, by that day, the version of Allie that existed before is not here. I may still smile at times or laugh at a funny show, but it's hollow, and I cry in between. I don't sleep at night, and my anxiety level is through the roof. So, I basically just have to learn how to live as a new person that has all this trauma and figure out how to go on, because I still have bills to pay. I still have to wake up every day, and I have, people reaching out to me that's definitely say, we don't know how you do it, because maybe they're going through something. They don't have the motivation to wake up. And I was like, well, what's the alternative is me staying in bed and dying or killing myself? But in the end, that means John wins. And I will do everything in my power to make sure that he's already taken my son, he's already taken me, that he can't win anymore. He can't have any more power. And I just try to remember that when I try to do things for Grayson. And when I travel or do things, I imagine Grayson being there. And I imagine holding his hand, what he would say or what he would want to do. And I do those things for him.
That's a question that I have, is how does she get out of bed? How does she
It's
live?
hard. And some days I don't get out of bed. Some days I'm like, I'm just not getting out of bed today.
Yeah. And I think that every day that you get out of bed and do something productive like this, that adds good into the world. It's something that Grayson's done.
I know that, right after his death, I had, a great support system with other protective parents that wanted, see these types of changes occur in, not just Florida, but in general in family court. Everyone was so instrumental in making change that we were able to get a new law drafted, which actually, went through House and Senate twice. And the second time around, it did get passed. And Grayson's Law went into effect in 2023, which now, helps make it easier for a judge to step in when one parent is harming another parent. Whereas before, it was much.
Right. And I mean, it's incredible that you were able to dust yourself off and think, how can I do something good from this horrific thing?
Well, it was helpful in the way, I was reading the book about grief that said, the 6 stages of grief is, finding meaning and purpose. And I just, the outpour of questions that people came to me with, and everyone had advice or wanted to get advice. And I started the foundation Grayson's Choice because I wanted everyone to know what happened. I want everyone to know how I was wronged, how Grayson was wronged, and all of the injustices that occurred, from lawyers, from judges, from police officers, from DCF and Child Protective Services. I mean, the level of injustice was just never ending. And I wanted everyone to hear the story because it was shocking to me that I couldn't get the help that I needed. That even if Grayson was still alive, I still would be living a tormented life with John as he was. But Grayson's Choice is now a nonprofit 501c3. We had our first fundraiser this past February called Bubble and Brunch,
which was so fun.
It was. We were able to raise a lot of money, and I always say, like, I don't know how to help all of these amazing parents that reach out to me who are scared, who are sad, who are going through similar experiences or other, crazy experiences. And, I have no advice other. I say, take your kid and run away because there will be no one here. There will be nothing to protect you. And I don't have advice. So the only thing that I can think of to help all these people is to be a resource. And hence this podcast. I'm hoping over the course of, the next few months to start rolling out some very insightful conversations with different experts and people in different fields, from doctors and law firms and counselors and therapists and just parents that have their own experiences to share. I'm hoping that, it will definitely be helpful for our listeners to get information that will be useful for them, or at least just to learn more and educate.
It's so important, this conversation. We want to explain really quickly about what Grayson's Law adds or changes to the Florida law?
Well, in layman's terms, because it's, there's a lot of mumbo jumbo.
Yeah.
But so part of my issue was that they said, that John was harming me, and that he wasn't harming the child. Although I don't know if he was or not. But so basically, Grayson's Law now introduces that if one parent is harming the other parent, or threatening, or you believe that you are or believe to be in imminent danger, which is big because before that didn't exist, then a judge can look at the facts and step in and remove the child from the home, or at least to make an informed decision. Before that, I said they were only looking at, well, were they hurting the child? But I always say, I'm like, if a human being is hurting another human being, who does it matter who they're hurting? They're not fit. They're not fit to be a parent. They are not. If you don't live a life hurting people and then, are okay with a toddler. It's like people, say, so Hitler was a father, he'd be a great dad because he was only killing the Jews, but I'm sure he was a really great dad.
Yeah. And I think that's such common sense law reform.
Very sense to me. Like if someone is breaking the law, if someone is causing harm, then someone needs to step in. And it makes me sick to my stomach that I was the guinea pig and Grayson, had to pay the price, and this common sense didn't exist. It's mind-boggling that we couldn't get the help we needed.
Well, it's incredible that through your grief, you were able to go to Tallahassee and get this law passed. And it was not an easy fix. You had a draft that did not pass the first year.
There was a lot of language in the first draft about coercive control that didn't make it through. We had to cut a lot out the second time around, which is still something that I feel passionate about getting amended back in, or I just want more shed light on the topic of coercive control, because it is so common in ways that people might not even realize. And it's really important to just educate, especially lawyers and doctors and judges, and so that they recognize that this is abuse. And I didn't have physical scars yet, but I was tormented daily.
Right. And I would say that it was a great day for that, and the bill passed. And it didn't just pass through the majority. It passed.
It was unanimous
With a Republican, Democratic Congress. That is a huge win.
Yeah, we had, it was obviously bipartisan, unanimous, and almost like every senator or House representative wanted to be a co-sponsor to the bill, because everyone just felt like it was just so important that it had to pass. Again, it's not where I would want it fully, but it does show a step in the right direction, and at least makes people, politicians aware and legislature aware these things are going on, and we need to make changes. And there's still so many changes that need to be made, and I can't do it alone. And I'm hoping that, through Grayson's Choice, through this podcast, we can shed some more light, because there's so many stories that I hear. But I went to Washington, D.C. to try to get conversations about getting child safety laws passed federally, which is we do have Caden's law. And I met all of these people that some were victims and some were other parents, where they're just accused of parental alienation, and their child was court ordered to go to this camp, reunification camp, because they feel like one parent was brainwashing the other parent. And the stories that I heard were just endlessly sad. They have to be heard.
So are there any upcoming projects or initiatives that you're excited about?
Well, I'm excited to see where this podcast goes, because obviously I'll probably learn a lot more through my conversations and the people that I meet with and talk with, or that we meet with and talk with, that, will drive some more ideas and maybe more connection and, more ways to get the word out.
And hopefully another fantastic choice.
Yes. I mean, obviously, we'll rely on donations to, keep it going for, to get, more, to keep this podcast going, to keep us going. And
advocacy work is never fully finished. There's going to always be more work.
No, there's always more to be done, especially in family court. It is so broken that it is going. It's not even going to happen in my life.
But you are doing wonderful.
Well, I try. I would trade places with anyone and gladly be at home watching cartoons with him. But unfortunately, this is my new norm.
I'm lucky to tell you.
Well, thank you. And I will say to everyone that's listening that I probably wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for this girl, because support is really what you do to get it, especially, the initial days right after, traumatic. And of course, my friends, my family, my boyfriend, my doctor, my therapist, they all play their own role. But it takes a village, and it's never something that I'm going to get over or be over with, or I just have to figure out how I can go on and live the rest of my life,
Well, I'll be there watching.
Well,
I can't wait to see what you do.
Well, either can I.
And I think the podcast is done.
Well, thank you. Well, if you have any other questions that you think our listeners would want to know about their host?
What's your favorite TV show?
Oh, goodness. I will say I've been watching General Hospital since I was 6 years old. I wouldn't quite say that.
Still on?
It's still on.
Oh my God.
I watched
Sunny? Is Sunny still on?
Sunny is still on.
Oh my God.
I watched, I don't even know. I just watched 10 seasons of The Blacklist. I just watched The Bear. Actually, I just watched a show called Fallout that your brother recommended.
Yeah.
I don't really have a favorite, but I'm trying to keep up.
It is interesting. You suffered more than anyone else, but yet your light still shines so brightly, and you're still.
Well, I thank you. I finally have to believe.
It's very true. Because they can't. You didn't steal your soul. You were still there. You are still you. You are still the girl I met. Should I say the number of years?
Yeah.
A long time ago.
So, well, thank you. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. And if you have any questions for me or for Erin Cooper, please feel free to email at Maddie@graysonschoice.org, and I will hopefully get back to you as soon as possible, and maybe your questions will be aired live on our podcast. If you have any guest suggestions that you would like, I will be taking those as well. So please contact me and let me know who you want to hear from.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for doing this, and thank you for listening. Till next time.